Hello everyone, this is a tutorial which explains my entire process for character design from sketch to final render, my thoughts, decisions, inspirations, process, etc. Hopefully you will find this helpful. This tutorial is aimed for intermediate artists, focusing on the application of fundamentals and building upon them to turn original ideas into hopefully interesting images. This is my first video on YouTube, so welcome to my channel. I'm a self-taught artist with roughly a decade of experience in various industries. You can see some of my portfolio work right now on screen. Feel free to comment or connect via any social media links in description below. You can share your feedback, questions, thoughts, anything really.
Tick tock, tin na, tick tock, tin na, tick tock, tin na.
This is the final image we'll eventually arrive at. I'll start off with a rough sketch. To me, this is really the most important part. It is the base upon which everything else will be built upon. I'm working in Procreate, but any software program you're comfortable with will work. I start off with a rough sketch, basically a pose, a gesture. While I don't have a clear idea, I do have a general idea about what I want, what sort of character I want. I want a leader sort of character with a sense of royalness, confidence, and capable of facing tough situations and decisions. I have previously done some research into what sort of clothing I want for the character to have, although there's nothing specific. What I'm trying to do here is develop the idea into a character which hopefully expresses that without being too on the nose about it. Anatomy, perspective, form, etc. All the fundamentals of art are used to express an idea, a character, anything. While these offer something tangible visually, oftentimes unintentionally young artists focus on the fundamentals or its execution itself as analogous to the perceived quality of the art by their peers or potential audience at large. Perfecting any fundamentals will definitely upgrade your art skill, but not necessarily your art. Their purpose is to be part of a wider toolset, amplifying the output into certain directions. Getting on grips with fundamentals is hard enough, let alone perfecting it. You need to get good enough at it, not perfected. For example, you don't need to know every single bone muscle's scientific name to draw them believably on the human form. But you definitely will prefer knowing their overall placement in the body and their function. For the longest time, using references of any sort would cause me a lot of trouble. Different artists have different ways of using reference to various extent for various purposes. These are images that stimulate your creative vision, overall feel, anything really. It's up to the individual what these could be. The possibilities are endless. From songs, dramas, films, performances, video essays, comics, podcasts, paintings, photos, genres, aesthetics, anything really. Memories, dreams, experiences, positive or negative. Obviously, I'm referring to something that you don't just merely copy and design, color, form, presentation, aesthetics, but more so a certain perspective, abstract, unwordable feeling. I do not possess enough knowledge of the English language to actually describe it. Hopefully, you have experienced this. Speaking from my personal experiences, your life experiences, memories, incidents, comedy or tragedy are the highest source of these kind of particular inspiration. A lot of times I depend upon how I remember an old song or that TV show, cartoon, anime from my childhood rather than what it actually is. Depending on your subject, you may need to familiarize yourself with your subject to a certain extent. Details, textures, forms, function, colors, anything that directly pertains to the visual depiction of a subject and its convincingness or its authenticity fall under this type of reference. This type of reference can, if not handled with care, can stifle one's artistic vision. You end up copying directly from whatever reference you deem good enough. In order to not lose your artistic creative grip on the output, one must not, under any circumstance, copy from the reference, but rather translate it through your art style, skill, vision. The reference images only provide information which certainly and appropriately applied enhances the authenticity, believability of the final output, not make your art necessarily good, in my opinion. I must say, in today's hive mind, AI-powered internet, most beginner, junior, and even intermediate artists fall into the error of depending directly on inauthentic sources. AI-generated slop, stiff, inorganic, overtly unnatural, detailed, or poorly designed but well-recognized stylizations, etc. One must not be swayed by how attractive or cool the reference image looks. Instead, wisely shop for applicable information that is translated through your own artistic sensibilities. If you don't like something, change it. This simple change in approach will drastically improve your standards of acceptance and improvement, thereby pushing your skill set, creativity, research, and how you use or don't use reference. This is exactly why you develop a painting, a concept, a drawing, not just jump to the final using so many shortcuts. You can only do that when you work mechanically, just Control C, Control V, whatever you want. When you develop an idea, any part of that any time is subject to potential improvement till you're done. That is how you finish a piece, not by adding highlights, clean lines, or color dodge or burn or something like that, mechanical, process based. Doing this consistently will also imbue you with a not putting up with anything that you don't agree with mindset. Artistically, that is. This is a key to continuous, subtle, multidimensional improvement in art. Understanding why something you worked on for so long looks or feels odd takes a certain level of problem solving skills. Thinking, observation, trial and error, fresh perspective, and more are part of the natural process. The more problems you spot, the better you solve them, the stronger and clearer the final work becomes. Know what you want so you can change what you don't want into it. This is exactly why one must not make the lamest excuses to not make changes on anything. Really, this simple mindset is the key to continuous growth, change, improvement. Commit yourself to making changes towards improvement wherever and whenever possible. The world that we operate in and thrive on is designed for speed and optimization. All that's great, whatever, but in my personal experience, art doesn't really work that way. Stop trying to work on an image super fast, where your hand is moving faster than you can think. In real life, work process, from my personal experience and from what I've read and heard from better artists, is deliberately slow, so you can think through your decisions, make the mark, and judge how it fits into what you have done so far and where you want to take it. Based on that judgment, you make the next mark and so on and so forth. From macro to micro, general to specific. Keep following and working up to your vision of the piece. This takes a whole lot of patience that really isn't cultivated in today's culture of instant gratification. Not only do you have to see and more importantly hold on to your artistic vision, you have to truly follow it. That means not settling on just something okay or passable or functional, but something more than that. Hopefully something more than just a verb. That means not settling down for generic hands, generic face angles, etc. That means reworking a piece's lighting for better impact or expression. That means slowly drawing or even pausing the piece that you're working on because you lack the knowledge on how to execute it properly. Not just merely copy from the references as a code. If you can keep up with this cycle continually for every finished piece you do, you are few years away from your ideal art self. Doing art feels so much better when you don't actually find it hard to love most of what you create, despite its flaws. You have tried and now you can rest. Move on to the next piece on the horizon. A lot of artists solely judge their work on the artwork they produced. While it's vital and necessary to get good results, in my experience it is much more important to find an actual process of creating art that stimulates you, that gives you a good time, despite whatever the results might suggest. In my few years of being a team lead professionally, this is the single biggest understated reason I've seen in terms of who sustain drawing, painting over their lifetime and who don't, passively or actively. Being good, bad at art skills can be improved upon, but not this. And it is worth it, in my opinion, to figure out an approach to art that you find interesting enough to follow. It is not safe, repetitive, generic, easy, etc. Whatever every other adjective you might want to use. I find myself lacking in articulation to properly explain this subject out of context. So I'll speak about my experience regarding the subject. As per most of the advice found online, one ought to use reference to improve their art. Now, already due to the artists that inspire me, I find working from imagination or memory very important to my approach, style, quality. Not having any reference for anything at all made me stagnate my improvement. To compensate for knowledge regarding unknown things, I started doing studies. So I'd study something and try to recall it while working from memory or imagination. That improved my work a whole lot. The more I did focus studies, be it on anatomy, cloth details, materials, lighting, whatever, the more my work from imagination improved. Years from there, now I'm at a point where I look at references and recall enough of it to make my drawings work for the most part. I also have integrated use of reference in my workflow recently, where I look at references while working and integrate information from the references without making it look or feel like I've copied from anything, without breaking my natural style. All of that yapping was to show how I wasn't comfortable with how I was using reference. It didn't really suit my working style, so I kept changing it, experimented, and finally figured out a way how to use them right. This is how most things go, really. You must not just abandon everything that doesn't work in an instant. Keep trying continually, non-obsessively, and eventually you will get it right. When you think about it, the artist's advice about references was right all along. I just needed to figure out how I use it right, optimally. This is the final result of the sketch. I've also worked on a portrait sketch of the character, part of which was already visible in the video. I finished it up in Photoshop. Unfortunately, I don't have the process recorded. Here is the finished result. The process is the same as the character. Keep refining continually. Next video will be on color wash, which is basically deciding upon the overall mood, feel of the image primarily, and how I plan to depict the character's personality using materials, lighting, shadows, textures, etc. I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you for watching.